Ever since 2021, after the Gundabad expansion launch, when LOTRO dropped a major hint of Harad coming to the game, I have been quite excited about the possibility of traveling far south. The excitement actually only grew in early 2023 when LOTRO did confirm that we are going to Harad with an Umbar expansion at the end of the year. But now we're in the middle of 2023, and I find myself not very excited about the Umbar expansion and instead kind of concerned about it more than anything. This concern actually started with the Update 36 Gondor Renewed beta, where there was this huge area of Western Gondor not included in the Gondor Renewed that would somehow have to be released before we actually sail to Umbar. And due to a few factors, I have had some delay in starting actually the new King's Gondor zone from Update 36, but in a recent stream, I mentioned that I predicted basically this video because the future that I saw for Update 37 and Update 38 for LOTRO just wouldn't really lead to this exciting Umbar expansion that I had built up in my head when it was initially announced. You see, when this was announced at the start of 2023, I figured the expansion would essentially start with us sailing to Umbar and the expansion being largely based in the Umbar region of Harad. But with Update 36, what I saw was either Update 37 including this massive swath of content in Western Gondor for us to build to sailing to Umbar, or, on the other hand, the expansion itself with Update 38 focusing largely on Western Gondor, either in addition to or even over the Umbar and Harad experience. In that first option with Update 37, all I saw was content overload right before a major expansion, leading to basically disinterest in the story and burnout. I already feel like this is going to be a video. Basically, did LOTRO release too much content? That is a worry I have, because the expansion is Umbar. As fun as the Gundabad expansion was, that is exactly how that expansion played out with the previous almost 2 years at that point. Leading up to the launch of the expansion, we were already playing in the Gundabad storyline. Instead of the Gundabad expansion starting its own storyline, it finished a storyline that had a very long build-up. While this is not like inherently necessarily a bad way to do things, I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, as I tend to prefer expansion cycles in games and MMOs to actually focus on the expansion storyline where you build up and cap off the same storyline within that expansion cycle within that level cap, instead of what LOTRO did with, say, Gundabad, actually Minas Morgul, and even Mordor, all three of those recent modern era expansions in LOTRO. The post-expansion content at that same level cap was just completely different than the expansion content. Now, this worry actually extends into that second option, with a lot of it being released in Update 38, as we still have the expansion story set like partially before the expansion and partially during. But I will say that after the expansion really is unknown, with the massive region that Harad is untapped, there's definitely a whole expansion cycle's worth of content there still. But following the second option, the driver of this video really, the LOTRO team recently confirmed that Western King's Gondor would be included as part of the Umbar expansion. And as much as I wish that weren't actually going to be the case, it really neutered my excitement for the expansion. I really wish I was more excited about this announcement, but it just wouldn't be genuine. Normally I'd try to be more optimistic, but I think I'm just partially disappointed based on like the contrast to my initial expectations, and I'm a bit burnt from previous updates and expansions. So to expand on the first point, I don't think it's a problem to have some form of lead up to an expansion. I think it actually makes sense. In fact, for sailing to Umbar, I think it's perfect to have a prelude to the Umbar's expansion storyline, where in Gondor we prepare to set sail as we travel west. But that is exactly where my philosophy contrasts the LOTRO reality, as we are getting and even already have much more than a brief and like optional prelude to the actual expansion storyline in Umbar and Harad. Then on top of that, I am concerned that there will be little to do in Umbar, as there's just this huge chunk of land left in Western Gondor and even in the Barrier Isles before we get to Umbar proper. If the majority of the expansion's content is left outside of Harad and set more along the Gondor coast, I just don't see myself really being as excited to actually sail to Umbar than if we just started the expansion that way, sailing there. All that said, I do want to focus on that if, because this video isn't meant to actually be overall negative. So at this point, Update 37 is not actually out and likely won't be out for a couple months. Update 38, the expansion update, is also not out, and we don't even have all the details on the content distribution in the expansion. The majority of my concern that I'm expressing here is actually based on the little details that have been announced and based on the experience in previous expansions. I believe that the Umbar expansion really gives the LOTRO team a huge opportunity for a great expansion cycle and storyline. So at this point, I just really want to explore the possibilities of Umbar and Harad that are still within the confines of what the LOTRO team has announced, and more specifically, how my concerns here could actually be entirely squelched. So I think the easiest way is if what we have in Update 36, that storyline does indeed continue in Western King's Gondor, but it's not actually going to be the main storyline of Umbar. While I don't really anticipate that to be the case, especially considering like the name of the book is called The Song of Waves and Wind, that would actually set up this book series to be like a prelude to the expansion. Along with that, Western King's Gondor could be an entirely level 140 zone, perhaps centered around more open world exploration, with the ability to jump straight or almost straight into sailing into Umbar. This way, the Barrier Isles in Umbar could actually make up basically like 99% of the expansion's content and contain the level 140 to 150 leveling experience. Another possibility that I have thought of that could make this expansion exciting and fun is that however they do decide to create and sculpt the content and storyline, I think it would be great if the product actually makes sense and in itself creates excitement and a fun experience in Western King's Gondor, even if that is not actually Umbar. I don't really anticipate there being a reality where like a good chunk of the Umbar expansion's content being outside of Umbar is ever really exciting to me, but it's not impossible. And really, it's just that overall at this point, I find myself more concerned than excited, and I just don't have much enthusiasm, and I wanted to share why that is with y'all. And it is very important to note that I am not disinterested in the expansion that is coming this year, or even in Update 37. I'm actually quite interested in both. I just don't feel quite as excited as I should be for a major Umbar expansion. Now, on a much more positive note, I am super excited about the upcoming Mariner class and all of its possibilities. Perhaps this class could start at level 140 already and prepare to sail for Umbar from character creation. It's really hard to just not be excited about a new class. I'm also going to be looking forward to the crafting revamp that we should start to see in Update 37. And with that, it will hopefully not only be like a lot more useful in the expansion, but just a lot more enjoyable than it has been for the past few years, and perhaps a much better leveling and guild experience. Now, as far as actual content, despite all my concerns over the content structure with the Umbar expansion, I can't help but be excited to explore the lands of Western King's Gondor and just see what they do with the sailing ships on the high seas and the barrier islands, and all that is never mind my interest in just an entirely new desert biome in the game once we get to Umbar proper and Harad. Anyway, now that I have shared my grievances and concerns with y'all, I am interested to hear if y'all are also concerned or maybe more excited for Umbar and the details that we do have. So please comment with your thoughts, and the next video that I have planned should be a lot less on the concerning side and more on the exciting side as we explore the new Mariner class coming to the game. So if you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more, and thanks for watching everyone.